Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the National Farmers Federation Leaders Summit. I'm Dan Borscher from the ABC, and I'm really thrilled today to be your Master of Ceremonies for this very important conversation about leadership and about looking to the future. And it is so crucial that we're gathering here right as Parliament's sitting on the land of the Ngunnawal people. And I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and the lands where you all gather from, and also other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. And there are people that wonder, why do an acknowledgement? What's that all about? I've just been fortunate enough to finish the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation's course, the main program. And there was a lightning bolt moment for me as I was standing on the shore of, on the sidelines of the Ord River in the Kimberley. And we went around the group, and you've got these incredible farmers, pastoralists, academics, leaders from all sorts of fields. And organically, as we went around, everyone acknowledged the country that they were from. So from me, it was Warramungu country from Tennant Creek, where I grew up, and Ngunnawal country now, where I live here in Canberra. And it was such a powerful moment as we had people from all walks of life pausing to talk about where they were from for that moment. And it said more to me than any of the speeches that I've heard or interviews that I've conducted about where we are as a nation right now. And something that it made really powerfully obvious to me was about how we're all on a journey as a nation. I understand the NFF is on its own journey and is developing a policy. The conversation that we're having right now as a nation about voice is actually about all of us having a voice in this, because as a nation we can't move forward unless we're all part of that conversation. So I want to commend the discussions that you're having, and I'm sure that you're all having within your own organisations as well. And how great is it to be back gathering in person, face to face, after we haven't been able to do this for some years. In fact, the last time a leadership summit for the NFF happened like this was back in 2019. This is a really important chance to reconnect, to have big conversations about where we are. And I tell you what, the world has shifted significantly since then. There's a big program, a big agenda that we're going to get through today, and I just want to acknowledge that there are people still arriving, getting through security, or even tougher than that is getting out of that coffee line over at Queen's Terrace. These conversations are all centred around the 2030 roadmap, and if you haven't had a chance to have a read of it, there's a QR code on the front page of your program where that'll take you directly to it. And I would commend you, because it goes to the heart of aspirations over the next 12 years of how to get to that $100 billion mark, what that looks like, notwithstanding the significant challenges along the way, but also acknowledging that there is so much work that's been done while still quite a bit to go. That's about taking the industry from 100 billion in farm gate output by 2030. Today we're also going to be hearing from the government, the opposition, the NFF kicking us off very shortly. And you'll hear from 5 keynote speakers, one each from the roadmap pillars, all in that roadmap on that QR code link. This is all about having big conversations. And after each keynote, I'm going to be sitting around a metaphorical campfire with our keynote speakers, as well as other guests. And we're going to be having a chance to dig a bit deeper. And I really encourage you to ask your questions, because this is a chance to either have those answered or help to be in part of this bigger conversation. We've got today respected senior farming regional leaders, and we really want to hear what you think. So I would encourage you to speak up and ask those questions when we get going in a little bit. I want to acknowledge the major sponsor today at Telstra, and if you could please give them a round of applause for their sponsoring this. And I know Fiona will go through the other sponsors in a moment, but they are at the bottom of the screen here, and also in the material that you got, and on the flyers here. Discussions like this don't happen without lots of people, lots of organisations coming together and generously sponsoring and supporting. So I just want to thank you all for those contributions. Now, I've probably got the best and the worst jobs today. I get to ask the questions, but I also have to run the stopwatch. So we're going to be really tight for time, and that means that we've got all these speakers. If speakers go over, it's going to eat into those campfire discussions. So I just ask everyone to try and be on time as much as possible. The hashtag for today on socials is hashtag towards100B. Lunch and afternoon tea will be served back in the Mural Hall for those of you that didn't attend the diversity breakfast this morning. For those who didn't, please follow the NFF staff or make sure that you don't get lost. Please remember that this is, of course, Parliament, so don't go wandering around aimlessly by yourself, because security are on the ball this morning. They've already pinged me for not having my pass early. I'm too afraid to take it off now. And just to let you know, obviously it's a non-smoking building. Bathrooms are up the stairs and to the left. To kick us off this morning, I'm really thrilled to welcome up someone who doesn't need a long introduction. Fiona Simson is president of the National Farmers Federation, a farmer from the New South Wales, Liverpool Plains, and of course the president of the National Farmers Federation. Please make her welcome.
Thanks so much, Dan, and good morning again for those of you for whom this is the second time. So I'm sorry that you're going to have to be listening to me twice in one day, but for those that I haven't said good morning to, yes, welcome, good morning, and I'm really excited to be here welcoming everybody to this second NFF Leaders Summit. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather today, the Ngunnawal people, pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional peoples of the land on which I farm on the Liverpool Plains and which my family has farmed on the Liverpool Plains for many generations now, the Gomeroi people. In our neck of the woods, we are incredibly fortunate to have a strong, respectful relationship with the traditional owners. We all learn from each other and we've all worked together on a number of different projects that are important to our community. We are a very strong community in the Liverpool Plains, and certainly that relationship is one that the landholders of the Liverpool Plains and the Gomeroi value and respect, and we continue to go on and learn together from that relationship. I'd like to thank everybody here for taking the time to come together personally to attend this and what we see as a really important event. I'd also like to extend our thanks to Telstra. It's Telstra's support that actually made the roadmap possible. When we had this crazy idea back in 2018 that we needed to set our own agenda, that we needed to travel right around Australia, that we needed to talk to farmers, that we needed to talk to stakeholders, needed to talk to government, that we needed to set a vision and get everyone on board for that vision, Telstra has been on that journey. Telstra enabled that journey way back then, and Telstra has been working with us strongly ever since. So I'm really excited, and thank you, Telstra, that we still have a very strong partnership. And certainly I think I'm probably a little bit biased, but I actually think the 2030 roadmap and the focus that has actually put on our industry and the support that we have been able to engender, not just from this current government, but from governments right across Australia, from state governments setting their own targets, from commodity sectors setting their own targets, from people buying into our 2030 roadmap and the important pillars that are underneath that. That is all because of it started back in the day with Telstra. So a huge thank you to Telstra. I'd also like to extend my thanks to all our NFF partners, and as Dan said, many of them are across the bottom of that screen, but we are also lucky to be joined with many of them today. Thank you to Coles, to McDonald's, to Farming for the Future, NBN, New Farm, Nutrien, Prime Super, Rabobank, Syngenta, KPMG and WFI. These partnerships allow us to expand what we do with our members, the work, the policy work that we do as an organisation to advance our industry, to advance our sector towards that $100 billion target and every other deliverable underneath that target. The partnerships that we have with you really help us to do that work, to be more effective and to improve the leadership and the representation that we provide and that our members provide, such as what we saw in the diversity graduation just earlier this morning. So our members, of course, a critical part of National Farmers Federation. They are the workhorse of the organisation, they are the representatives of the farmers, and they are the ones that make the policy that drive what we do. But it's important too that we work with the whole sector to keep extending our reach and improving the outcomes that we're able to achieve. There's also no better example of this than Ag Day, National Ag Day, which we celebrated just last Friday. How exciting, eh? Beaming live into Martin Place in Sydney with virtual reality and a live event and live screens. In Melbourne as well, and I know that AgForce had a massive event up in Brisbane. So exciting, and again, with support from our partners, you know, that we have some clear deliverables, and I think it's really important to reflect on this. Clear deliverables in our 2030 roadmap about reaching communities, about telling our story, about encouraging people into our sector, about continuing to shine the light on what we do as farmers and in our agricultural sector. And so it's not just an airy-fairy idea. This is really helping us to achieve some of those outcomes that are in our 2030 roadmap and are so important that if we continue to want to be the $100 billion industry by 2030, if we want to keep encouraging and attracting people into our sector, if we want to keep our sector vibrant, if we want to keep being the industry of choice, then just as we need to keep looking at our culture, which is what we spoke about earlier this morning, and the diversity within our sector, we also need to keep looking at telling our story, doing it better, enabling people to tell their stories from right on their farms. And I couldn't have been more excited that even though I couldn't attend the cities personally, I was able to beam in live from my farm on Friday. But Ag Day, of course, was last week. And today is all about bringing the senior industry leaders together to reflect on our achievements, and we do this up until COVID, we used to do this every year, and discuss our challenges and our opportunities for the future. And as I've said, it is the 2030 roadmap that must drive this. The roadmap and the traction that it's gained is just something that we are incredibly proud of at NFF and guides absolutely everything that we do. It's all there. It's critical that 4 years in, we continue to reaffirm that vision and all the different goals that sit beneath it that bring that $100 billion target, that really sexy target to life for not just farmers but for our whole sector. And what better place to do that than right here in the heart of the decision-making sort of machine at Parliament House. I hope through the sessions we'll hold today and the conversations that you'll have with each other and the decision makers in the breaks that we come away with a clear shared understanding of some of the challenges that we face and some new thinking maybe about how we might overcome these challenges together. As we come together to reflect on the year, we have to acknowledge what a year it's been. It seems extraordinary actually that we're already at the end of it. The past year has once again been defined by astounding volatility in our climate, geopolitics, politics here in Australia, and the markets. Farmers have experienced extraordinary rainfall in many parts of the country, once-in-a-generation flood on once-in-a-generation flood, coming on once-in-a-generation drought. And at the beginning of the season, in the early parts of the season, we thought it was so promising and people had spent so much on their crops in particular, only now facing the heartbreak of damaging rain and floods. As we meet here today in the cosy confines of Parliament House, we should acknowledge and we must acknowledge and spare a thought for the producers across so much of the country facing absolutely unprecedented flooding and damage, in many cases for the second or third time this year. Communities like Eugowra completely smashed and devastated. On my own farm, we've been spared a lot of the terrible damage, but the water has come through, and I know even for us, we are well behind with our cropping program. We are still sowing our next crop, and I'm not sure that there's much of our winter crop left to harvest. But the challenges that my family face absolutely pale in comparison to communities such as the central west of New South Wales, where people are still flooded in, and the heartbreak of entire crop losses that many farmers have had to deal with. At NFF, it's an absolutely important focus for us and for our members to be working with government on what this mammoth recovery task will unfold. We certainly welcomed the extra the additional money that took the amount to $75,000 that the government has allocated in New South Wales for flood recovery. And we're still yet to understand the full damage to crops and infrastructure, but we know that those road and rail assets will take many, many years and many, many billions of dollars to rebuild. And it's critical, it's urgent, because right now people across New South Wales are starting to harvest, and it's critical that we can actually get that crop to the silos and to the ports. But it's not just the weather that has made this year significant. 2022 saw a new party form in government in Canberra for only the 8th time since the Second World War, bringing with it profound policy changes for the farm sector and keeping us really busy at NFF as we've gone round and kept meeting and greeting the new ministers and briefing them. We've certainly welcomed this government's genuine commitment to openness and engagement with industry, from the PM to the Ag Minister and right across other portfolios. As President of the NFF, cementing these relationships and ensuring that the farm sector remains high on the government's agenda has been absolutely my important focus. Of course, as with the government that came before it, we won't agree on everything, and we actually already haven't. But the NFF has the reputation it does because we believe that it's all built on relationships. We commit to mature, reasoned discussions on the issues, no surprises, and we bring forward issues that matter. Everything that we've heard and seen from this government in its early months indicate that it shares this approach. And of course, we've seen the theme of change and volatility shape the world this year, not just in Australia, but globally as well. Conflict in Ukraine has sent markets into turmoil, with prices of both inputs and commodities spiralling. This has caused an alarming jump in the number of people here and abroad now facing acute hunger. COVID, conflict and climate change are wreaking havoc on food supply systems across the world. And as we address some of these urgent issues for our country, for the world, for our populations, we need to address all of them at once. It's not enough just to focus on the urgency of climate change. We need to do it with making sure that we can maintain sustainable food production in a lower carbon economy at the same time. Supply chains in Australia have been disrupted too, and farmers have actually been faced with absolute record input costs. But through all of this, farmers in Australia have done what they do best, persevering against the odds to keep Australia and the world fed and clothed, and delivering another strong financial result for the sector, according to the latest forecasts. What's more critical now than ever is that farmers are supported through this volatility with policies that address our most pressing challenges. Issues like labour shortages, biosecurity, transport infrastructure, the roads, to name a few, which Tony's going to talk about a lot more shortly. To achieve those policies, the sector needs a clear plan for the future, strong leadership and a strong partnership with governments. We also need to press on with some of those more challenging issues that our sector has to address as well, things like diversity, things like culture, things like climate change, things like our relationship with Indigenous people. NFF is only too happy to step up and to lead with our members in this space as well. At the NFF, we remain committed to our target of becoming Australia's next $100 billion industry and all the goals underneath it. That aspiration remains very much within reach, and we thank everyone in government and industry for their continued commitment to that vision. Thank you again for your attendance today and for your ongoing support of NFF. I hope you enjoy a fantastic day. For some of you, it's in the middle of what is a very, very big week, but please do make the most of the opportunity with so many of your colleagues in the room and decision makers too coming and going to challenge them and have a yarn. Take the opportunity to reconnect with old friends, but also make some new ones and celebrate our achievements in what has been really a massive, massive year. Thank you so much, everybody, and I look forward to talking to many of you during the day. Dan, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. And when you touch on the tyranny and volatility of the trifecta that we're facing, COVID, conflict and climate change, these certainly are uncertain times. The vision, I think, around the roadmap is part of how we navigate this going forward. So I'm looking forward to fleshing out some of that, some of those solutions throughout the day.